uh, it's a quality thing, then
Yes.
that can you can like a guy with an advanced nervous system like BJ Penn can out leverage their quality over someone else's volume or quantity training.
Yeah. Yeah. And the neuromuscular reflexes,
Yeah.
your reaction time, all these soft qualities that we can't really measure, they're everything in a fight.
Hmm.
You know, you have a guy who's nothing but power and strength, and he can't do anything against a guy who's all reflex and timing.
Yeah. I
You know, and
remember
a lot of guys lose sight of this.
I remember hearing an interview with GSP about the I guess the next fight that he had with BJ Penn, but in preparing for that, they were breaking down film on a frame by frame basis, and apparently at the time, BJ Penn had the fastest reactions, like in terms of frame how many frames to react of anyone in the UFC that they were tracking that way, whoever GSP was working with.
Yeah, 100%. And when you look at BJ, he's a little slower. You know, see his footwork is a little slower. He's a little heavier. He doesn't move quite as athletically. Now, granted, this is probably the setup for this fight, but BJ, he's not good at preparing his body. He's lazy, to be totally honest. He gets lazy. He really banks on his talent of his nervous system to get him through the fight and to figure it out. All right, so let's go into uh, BJ Penn going through the nervous system training, and we'll kind of reflect on his performances after. So BJ eventually lost to George St. Pierre a few fights later, or maybe the next fight. He wanted to rectify his wrongdoings. Like BJ got his ass kicked so bad by George that they threw in the towel. Like his BJ was just not responding to his corner. He was just totally fried. Cardio was fried. He was getting beat up. George was just better prepared, better game plan, uh, just better fighter on that day. And so BJ Penn got a hold of, no, actually, I think it's BJ Penn's brother got a hold of the Marinoviches. Can't they didn't really explain why. BJ couldn't was trying to explain. He couldn't really remember, but they both lived in the California area, and BJ started doing training camps with the Marinoviches. The first training camp they did in California against Kenny Florian, and this is where BJ kind of took on the nervous system training and realized that, oh, this training system kind of fits what I like to feel when I fight. You know, like when you have a guy who's really neuromuscularly talented, you know, like their nervous system is
Yeah.
really advanced, their reflexes are really advanced, their fast twitch, their timing. When you do a more traditional weightlifting system, a lot of these guys can feel it working against them.
Hmm.
Now, in a lot of situations, they're either on a football team, they're in a college sport or something like that, and they have to go through these workouts. It's mandatory. And a lot of them skip out on them. You know, a lot of them complain, you know, they don't like to do it. Like I worked with a football player, really fast fucking guy, jumps really high. He's trying to get a job in the NFL. He hated weightlifting. He always felt like he said told me he'd always feel like shit whenever he would have to go weightlift. And the next day at practice, he felt slower, he felt tight, he felt sore. He just didn't feel good on the field. You know, and Marv also discovered this as a talent scout for the NFL. He would go all across the nation and he would screen the best contenders that could be drafted in the NFL during, like, I think the 70s. And he realized after collecting all this data that the guys who had the best numbers in the weight room had the worst numbers on the field.
Interesting. It's a negative correlation.
Yeah. And then he also came across other patterns. You know, certain ranges of motion, certain reflexes, certain muscle developments, where he noticed that there's common biomechanical traits to the best guys. Or he noticed that guys with great biomechanics, good reflexive timing, all these different qualities he was trying to measure. And this is the 70s before a lot of these ideas were even like mainstream. He was kind of writing the the book to what the combine is kind of based off of. He was writing the book for the NFL. You know, he kind of pioneered the whole methodology and the whole philosophy for assessing athletes. He was the first to really do it at a large scale, funded by the NFL. And so he realized all these different common patterns. And that's when he started to understand what real athleticism was and how it really came from the nervous system. And that's when he quit the NFL to run his own training methodology to try to figure out, how do I make an athlete better? And then Marv Marinovich over time put together his training methodology. He started working with Dr. Edith Hughes on the ball work and balance training. And that's where we got the nervous system training. And that's what BJ Penn is running through right now. Now, when BJ was running through this training camp, there was a lot of different things that Marv Marinovich was doing to try to fix what's going on with BJ. First thing is athletic assessment. Running an athletic assessment on BJ Penn's body, understanding where his strengths and weaknesses are. And this athletic assessment is something that was taught to me by Nick Curson. Nick Curson learned it from Marv Marinovich, and it's just manual muscle testing. How strong is their lab adduction? How strong is their lab abduction? How strong is their internal rotation, external rotation? How strong is their core strength? And there's all these different tests that we can run to determine where they have weakness in their kinetic chain. Wherever you have weakness, you're leaking force. Your force generation is going down, compensation goes up, and injuries start to occur. So you first run him through BJ through the athletic assessment, figure out where his strengths and weaknesses are, figure out how fast the muscle can fire, how much neurological drive the muscle has, how much strength the muscle has. And then once you determine this, then we have to figure out what's going on with his cardio system. And so what a lot of guys don't do, and it blows my mind, how many MMA coaches do not do this, with the best fighters in the world still don't do this. Get a fucking heart rate monitor on your athletes. Like, this is the easiest thing to do, and I never see it. Only with the top guys in the world that hire an advanced specialist do I see heart rate monitors. But majority of MMA fighters never cardio test themselves. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. These guys don't have these numbers. Yeah. So you put a heart rate monitor on you. You can run yourself through various cardio tests. You can do the Cooper's 12-minute run test. Super easy. Run your numbers in a calculator, figure out where your VO2 max is, start calculating your zones, and you can see if there's a deficiency. You can do the 10-minute row test, where you get on a row machine, put it either to resistance 1 or resistance 2, and you row your ass off for 10 minutes to see how many calories you can burn. Depending on how many calories you can burn, in the athletic assessment, it gives you a score. And you can also determine where a kinetic breakdown happens, and also where your mental stamina is at. Here's a very interesting thing. When I run guys through the cardio, the Concept 2, when I was training people in person, I was training fighters, the Concept 2 row machine test, this would make or break the training program. I had guys literally quit on me and walk out of the building because mentally they couldn't handle it. They would get upset. They would start freaking out. They would get frustrated. They wouldn't and they wouldn't want to be pushed. You really figure out where your limits are in cardio training, where your mental strength is, where your determination is, your mental stamina. Like, I literally had on 2 different occasions, I had a male MMA fighter, literally like halfway into the test, he quit. He's like, "Oh man, I'm not feeling it today. Let's just do this tomorrow." And I'm like, "No, we're doing it today. We need a score today. Like, you're finishing the test." And he's like, "You can't tell me what to do." I'm like, "You hired me to help you. Like, you hired me. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, you think it's hard now? This is a fucking row machine. How are you going to feel when you're fighting another man?" And he's like, "You know what? I'm not going to be talked to like this." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're a fucking adult. Like, do the test. You're he's a pro." And he packed his bags. He walked out the building. Never saw him again. Never saw him from a fucking row machine test.
Do you know how his fighting results went after that? Did you keep?
Never fought again. It broke him. He never fought again. He totally disappeared. Wow. I want to name his name so bad because this guy is annoyed me so much. And but
what's the first letter of his name, just so that he knows?
Jay.
Jay. Okay.
Yeah, you know who you are, Jay. You know who you are. You fucking quit. And you never fought again. Super talented, and he was super talented. It's another area. He was so physically gifted that he just couldn't handle the push. Emotionally, he wasn't strong. And this is why a lot of guys quit. This is why a lot of guys fall apart in sports, is because mentally they're just not strong enough to handle it. But He totally fell apart because when you push yourself to your absolute limit and then beyond, and then you have to stay there, you really figure out what's going on with their personality. Are they going to quit? Are they going to argue? Are they going to get upset? Are they going to get more determined? Are they going to get more aggressive? And you want to see these things. And when you see it in the test, this is why the whole David Goggins thing is, I think, is a bunch of bullshit. You know, not to say David Goggins is full of shit. I think he's a great guy. He's definitely hardworking. And can you test your mind and come out better the other side? Yes. But at the expense of your whole body, not necessary. You can figure this out in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, with a heart rate monitor, a coach oversighting you, running the test at max effort, you will figure out what you're made out of. Because you don't need that much time to burn the nervous system out. It only takes about 10 minutes, maybe 20 on a really advanced athlete. And in another area where this row machine broke an athlete that quit on me. I was working with this